Hey folks, welcome back to New Yankee Auto Systems, or should I say New Yankee Electrical Systems. That's right, it's another electrical video. I apologize if that's dragging on and on, or a lot of the content, but here's the thing. Just about 100% of this conversion is electrical. It's adding headlights, taillights, turn signals, horn kits, wiring to support anything else that you're going to need for the street. That's just what it is. The conversion is adding in all of these accessories to make it road legal. Probably 80% of the build has been electrical. The rest has been going over and sorting through things that need repaired or replaced. So as far as this project goes, the electrical is very nearly sorted. What I have here is the last piece that I need for the electrical, which is the turn signal and horn kit. I did purchase this as a kit, but it does need to be assembled. So that's what I'm going to jump into today, is assembling this kit, at least getting it mocked into the car, knowing where it's going to live in space, and then hopefully getting everything finalized and installed. There's gonna be a bit that keeps me from mounting the turn signals and the headlights completely, such as the bodywork. I need to know where that stuff's going to live in space as well, so I know where I can put my headlights and my turn signals. And additionally, I still have to finish up my front bumper design. I don't know how I'm gonna do that, but that's where I want my turn signals to live. So, in this episode, we're going to deep dive into assembling this kit. It comes with a good detailed amount of instructions, but there's going to be a lot of laying wires out, finding out where it goes, and placing it in the car. So let's get started. This is just a quick unboxing of the kit. I'll go over in more detail everything that's in here, but here you can see the instructions. There's plenty of wire loom, all of the other fuse holders, rocker switches, connectors, all that's in there, and I'll go into more detail in that in just a minute. Now that we have the kit unpacked, I'll go through and show you exactly what came in it. There is a list of items that they have for their multiple different kits that they provide. What I have is a collection of butt connectors, female spades, scotch locks, which I'm going to try not to use because I do not like those, ring terminals, horn button, spade terminals for the horn button itself, self-tapping screws to create grounds. I may have to do it that way. I prefer to return it back to the common ground at the back of the car, but the instructions do say to ground out as quickly as possible in the shortest distance. Some adapters, an LED flasher, which is really good. I did look at that. It is set up for LED, so that should have the correct impedance to operate at the correct flash rate. Fuse holders, fuses. Does come with a cabin indicator light, so it'll actually show you that the indicator is on through a separate LED. Then it also comes with a rocker switch. So just going through everything, you can see everything that I have in the kit that's going to need to be assembled. We'll start over to the left, which is the main power supply cable. This is going to run to the back of the battery and then have its fuse installed in it. The fuse is already installed in there because I did already previously look at this kit. The LED flasher unit, which he does have marked, which is great because the instructions, he tells you to put a certain wire to a certain letter, X, P, or L on the flasher, so that's good. And the instructions, they seem to be very well written, so that'll help me out there. The turn signal switch, this also mounts to the LED flasher and to the ground, so this is where most of the wiring split off is going to happen. The forward LED flashers, there are 4 orange LED flashers here. They're really tiny because this is meant for an ATV or UTV kit, but however, I couldn't really find anything that was street legal conversion kit LED for an automobile. So I'm just working with what I have. I can always wire something else bigger and brighter into this. The rear LED flashers, which are red, the horn fuse kit, the horn button, the in-cabin indicator light, and then a whole mess of wires. So this is just what I'm going to have to work with. There may be other options for future builds where I go in a different route. I was really hoping that this kit would be pre-assembled. That's why I bought a kit. I was trying to save time in wiring. However, it does have very detailed instructions, and it does at least give me the availability to measure the length of wire that I need for where I need it to go, and does give me some mobility in that aspect. So I'm going to go ahead and work out blowing all this apart, getting it laid out, see exactly what I have, and then start measuring it up on the car and see exactly where everything's going to land. Here I was just sorting everything out, making sure all the wire ties were off, all the components were there, and familiarizing myself with all the components that were involved in this kit. I'll get to building and assembling everything here in just a little bit. After glancing briefly through the kit, I did look at needing to make a template for the rocker switch. However, just to be straightforward and completely honest, had I read the instructions clearly and well, I would have found out that there's already a template supplied inside of the instructions. So this whole section is pretty much just a big waste of my time. However, it does play in later on in the video when I'm mounting the rocker switch. So I just wanted to show and explain exactly what I'm doing here, so you know what you're looking at later on in the video. Now that I have a template to use, even if it wasn't the right one to use, I got inside of the car and mounted the steering wheel and checked my ergonomics and visual cues for where I could put the turn signal. Ultimately, to the left of the tachometer is where it was going to work best. 1, that's where you use your turn signals in your regular car. 2, as far as the eye line sight, it was easy to see, and it was away from all the other lights on the right side of the dash, so I could put the cabin indicator light over here and it wouldn't be as confusing. With the rocker switch location figured out, I put down some blue tape on the dash, 1 to protect the dash from damage when I use the air saw and drill, and 2 so that I could easily make a template on there that wouldn't be permanent on the dash. With my template installed, I simply just traced the inner area so I could give myself a guide of where to cut so that I could get the rocker switch to fit onto the dash panel. So here I have the dash removed again. I've got my turn signal mounted, kind of just trying to clean up some of the wiring back here. I had to put electrical tape around the back of the switch here because I just ended up filing it way too large. And that's disappointing, but it feels pretty solid. It's not going to go anywhere. So all of these wires are going to have to connect to the flasher or to grounds. And I've got the turn signal here, the turn signal indicator here as well. With my wiring being on the left side of the panel, I decided that I was going to put the flasher on the left side of the car. That seems like it's going to be easily accessible from underneath if you had to, as opposed to taking the dash out to get to the flasher or anything else. It's zip tied in place right now just until I get the self-tapping screw. I don't really like using the self-tapping screws, but there's not a lot of space back here, so I don't want to waste a riv nut in there. I also don't want to egg out that tube any further than it has to be. It looks like it's also a clutch support bracket, so this seems like a good place to put it. I didn't want to put it underneath where it might interfere with the clutch pedal actuation, so that's where I'm going to put it. I'm going to go ahead and drill that self-tapper in and get started on that.
A few moments later.
Okay, so at this point I can give you all a little sneak peek behind the wiring, what I've been up to. What I've got the dash panel laid in here for now, just so I could visualize all my connections, and yes, there's a lot of wires everywhere. This whole group here is for the tachometer, so we're kind of just setting that aside and forgetting about that. What we have is the turn signal switch here. It has a blue wire that needs to go to the P on the flasher. You can see the P there. There's also an X here and an L here. Then there's also a yellow wire that says that it needs to go to L on the flasher. We have that hooked up. That comes out of this wire loom. I've just zip tied the blue wire to the black wire loom and kind of took up the extra space there. I don't want to cut this harness and make it fit perfect, just because it seems to have enough length to where I can get to everything, but not too much excess. I do want to leave the excess just in case something doesn't work and I need to get that back. The turn signal indicator here has a white ground wire that you can see at the end. It says to any ground on it. And then there's also a black wire from the turn signal harness that comes in. I just loosely tied those together inside of a wire loom, taped them to the dash so they can stay together, and made them so they can be like a common grouped ground. What I'm gonna do is I cleaned up a spot right here that already had a hole that is close to the same size as this self-tapping screw. So that's what I'm gonna utilize as that ground. Additionally, the rest of the wiring over here is, you can still see, I did have to disconnect everything from the switch and pull it out so that I could get this far and do everything. Although it is taking me quite a while to do this, again, I'm just being very particular where I can, because I really don't want to have to get in here and do this again. I really want it to be done the best that I can. Well, I'm about 2 hours in right now, just getting everything set up, reading the instructions, rereading the instructions, because if I'd read the instructions well, I would have found out they had a template provided in the instructions, and I wouldn't have had so much hassle there, and I might have actually cut it out correctly. Lessons learned. So after every step, I'm kind of just stopping and reading the instructions to see exactly what they have. Right now, it's about the time to start running the wires for everything. The other two wires in the wire loom are red and green for the actual turn signals. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out how I'm going to run those. So it's been another few hours now, time for a wiring update. As far as the length of the time it took, it's just me being particular. sure somebody could get it done better, quicker. But I'm just trying to think of every last little thing when I run these wires and what's going to happen with that. So let's dive in and I'll show you what I've got. First things first, coming off the flasher unit, I have the main power is ran. I also have the indicator light and then the yellow wire. That hasn't said exactly what that was for. I'm guessing that's just the actual signal wire from the turn signal source there. So what I've got after that, I've got my green and red power wires. Red is for the, what is that? The passenger side, and green is for the driver side. These are the two wires that come in from the signal. Then I had to do a joint connector here, very much like you can see the connectors here, just spade terminals, but I had to make sure to wrap them up. Just had to make sure that I was able to separate the body from each other and from the signals. And then I've also got breakouts in here to separate the rest of that feed from the rest of the switch as well. Then I've got the horn button wire coming down in here. I had to put a connector in there because it was only about this long. I didn't want my horn button over there. I've ran additional wire that I had left over. Ran that all the way back here and kind of just taped it to the back of the panel so it'll stay in put. And ran that to this side of the button, which is where the button is located on the right hand side. So you'll have turn signals and high beams on the left, regular lights and horn buttons on the right. So I still have to install this wire. This is supposed to be for the horn, but obviously that's not going to be long enough either. So what I'm going to do is have to also extend this wire. I'll have to put a connector in there as well, and then run that along the front of the car. What I have as far as the rest of the power wires, they are coming out of the firewall there. I'm going to build some kind of tube that I can mount to this extra mount location there, because I don't really want to just run the wires through. I probably could. That would be simple. That might be something that I do, might not. But then I have the wires. It should be enough extra length as well, because of course there's also going to be the length on the connectors themselves. So I kind of just shot the wire up this way and this way as tightly as I could to try and emulate where it might be, and then just gave myself some extra room. So then I've got the driver's side one coming across the front here. I've got the rear feed wires going up through this wire loom. That wire loom runs up to these pillars. I still need to tie them off into these pillars here. But the passenger side and driver side run to that junction there. Then the driver side splits and goes down this down tube, and the passenger side goes down that down tube. So I'm making pretty decent progress with that. Again, I'm just being super particular and really thinking about every way that this thing might need to be serviced, and the right amount of length of wire, and the right kind of connectors. I'm just trying to make it easiest to, one, for me to put in, and two, for somebody else to work on if they have to. So again, I'm just kind of overkill on the thinking it, but just going to keep on trudging on until I'm finished. Hopefully I'll be at a point to test everything soon.
Let's take a little break, shall we? We haven't had one in, say, about 8 minutes. So I know there's a lot to absorb in this video, but this is the really deep dive of the electrical work that I've been doing on this car. All of the components that need to be hooked up, all of the electrical that needs to be ran. In the next clip, you'll see that I found a thread to fit into this part of the mount on the transmission. I found a bolt that will match into this thread pitch. It will sit there and it'll act as a way to mount the tube that I discussed earlier to have and carry all of those wiring to the front of the car. Alright, so I have my wiring all pretty much fully fit except for final installation of the lights. I don't know where they're going to go yet, but I do have everything ground out to the frame, front and rear. So we're going to go ahead and give it a test and see if everything works. Everything works! Sort of. So I said that everything works, and that's true to a degree. Everything I installed today works properly. I even checked the brake lights, they were still working. One weird thing that's happening is when I have the auxiliary headlights plugged in, but not turned on, the left one comes on. I mean, it's really weird because the auxiliary headlights are actually powered off of that bus bar and then grounded to that bus bar. So the only thing that I can think is that somehow the left front headlight is getting power when it's not supposed to. I did reroute where the wiring was. I haven't really done any troubleshooting on that yet. I mean, it's the end of the day for me, so I'll have to just kind of do that off camera and get that figured out. But everything that I ran today is working, so that's good. At least my efforts were worth something. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to New Yankee Auto Systems, and also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/New Yankee Auto. We ended up getting a lot of stuff done with the electrical on the car today. I feel really good about how far along it's come and how well I have everything sorted. However, I do have that peculiar electrical gremlin that's popped up. I'm going to have to work on fixing that, but I'm pretty sure that I can figure that out. If I can't, I'll just have to take out those auxiliary lights. It's not a big deal. I have another set of lights. Hopefully they work. But maybe it's just a weird cross wire or a ground issue. So make sure to stay tuned next week when we have some more coming with Petty Chevy. Probably going to be getting back into some body work. We need to get these fenders mounted up so we know where to place our blinkers and headlights and taillights and all of those things. So I've got a little bit of body work to do, so I'm probably going to jump into that next week. So make sure to stay tuned for the next episode of Petty Chevy on New Yankee Auto Systems.